Hello, I'm David DeCosmo. Welcome to ECTV Live. You will notice only two chairs on our set today. My regular colleague, Rusty Fender, is enjoying some much-earned time off, so we'll welcome him back sometime soon. But we do have an interesting guest with us. Justin Barons is with the Keystone mission. Now, we've talked about the Keystone mission here on the show a number of other times, and Justin, usually it's very common for us to have someone on as the winter begins, because we all know, the mission deals with the homeless problem, and in the wintertime we know they face the cold and being without shelter, certainly during the daylight hours. But as summer comes on, we don't think about it, because we figure, well, it's nice out as much as it's not. So first of all, we should point out that you've just recently taken over as executive director of the mission. So you're kind of learning on the job a little bit?
That's correct. Kind of like get your feet wet and throw them right into it. So
right.
That's basically what I'm doing.
But you do have background in social services.
Yeah, I've worked, prior to this, I've worked about 12 years in human services down in Luzerne County.
And as we chatted casually before we went on, and I told you I'm going to ask you about the need, because the homeless, to many of us, are somewhat invisible. It isn't like the big cities where you see people, maybe 3-4 on a block bundled up in a storefront and things. And consequently, it's a little difficult to believe that there's that much of a problem here. What from not only your new work with the mission, but what from your work with social services before that, what have you learned about the problem in this area? And when I say the area, we're not talking just Scranton, Luzerne, Lackawanna County.
So let me start back saying that about 500,000 people are homeless in the country.
Okay.
Of that, 13,000 of them are in Pennsylvania. And we can't really pinpoint the exact amount here in Luzerne and Lackawanna, but we're up there in close to the 1,000 range. And the reason for that is, I like to say homelessness doesn't discriminate. A homeless individual can be anywhere, male, female, can be any race, can be poor, rich. And you look at me and you say, well, how could you say rich?
Yeah.
Things can change in people's lives, and instantly they can become homeless. So you can have the most wealthiest individual that has some bad luck, things turn in the wrong direction, and then all of a sudden now they're homeless and they have nowhere to turn. They don't have the house that they used to live in. What do they result to? They have to live off the streets. They have to find a place to live. They couch surf. So when we talk about the homeless population, we're not just talking about the individual that is living on the streets, that's living off in the woods, that's living, on that cardboard cutout, and they're begging for money or whatever they're trying to do. That's not your typical homeless individual. A homeless individual is someone that doesn't have a place of residency and doesn't have anything to pay for that, doesn't have any income coming in to help them get better in a better life. So that's when we're looking at homeless in there. Now, you brought up a good point. In the wintertime, it gets really cold. People are, afraid. You hear all those warnings out there on the TV.
Yeah.
About, hey, it's going to get below 20 degrees. Let's get them inside. Let's get them, safe. But when the summertime, when everyone's thinking about shorts, sandals, going on vacation, going to the beach, we don't talk about the homeless population. It's there. And I would even encourage to say it even gets worse in the summertime. And that's because the homeless population is not going to fight for those services that are out there, because they can live outside. They can live, in the environment, because the elements are not as dangerous as they were. But it still exists.
So they may not make themselves as visible at that time.
Correct. They're not looking for that help. They're not looking, because is it really a life or death decision in the summertime? Not really, because they're living outside, the weather's okay. But it is in a sense, because you still have the heat stroke. You still have, the severe heat with dehydration. You still have the individuals that are exposed to the elements. And you also have those individuals that are just like, hey, I can live out there in the woods and not worry about that situation. But you got the different, whatever the environment and animals that are out there that could hurt. So we still have that situation going on right now.
And you mentioned in the elements, and now that you say that, I think back last summer, it was extremely wet. We had more rain than usual. And this year has, the fall or spring into summer is beginning with a similar trend. That, sure, maybe not a life and death situation, but certainly a very uncomfortable living situation.
Correct. And it's interesting because I just came from a conference where we talked to a whole bunch of rescue missions that were out there, and we talk about the issues and the troubles that we're having. And, in California, in Arizona, in Texas, their summertime is a dangerous time because you got the severe heat. Yeah. But in the wintertime, they're the reverse. They don't have the problems that we have here in the wintertime, so they don't have that luxury, or they don't have that income of coming in, donations coming in, volunteer work coming in the wintertime. Where in the summertime here in Pennsylvania, it's nicer weather.
Never thought about that.
Less people don't have a lot of donations. They don't want to donate as much because it's not a cause that's being out there, and they don't want to volunteer as much either. And because of vacation, because it's also not out there. So I commend you for actually having this and getting that recognition that homelessness still exists. And I always say it doesn't discriminate. It will always be there. It doesn't matter who you are. You could wake up the next day and might be homeless. And that's why, it's so important to give back, because you never know if that's going to be you and, wearing those shoes.
Or
one
someone
day.
Certainly could
Correct.
Could be involved. The Keystone mission operates two centers, one here in Scranton and another in Wilkes-Barre. I'm gathering just from your opening remarks that the problem's pretty much the same in both communities.
It again, across the whole nation and across the whole state of Pennsylvania and across Luzerne County, Lackawanna, and all the other counties, it is the same problem. The question is how severe is that problem? Mm-hmm. I would say that Wilkes-Barre and Scranton have the same severity when it comes to homelessness.
Okay. Homelessness is undoubtedly a problem if you're homeless. Is homelessness a problem for those of us who are not?
I would say yes. So here's the issue. Everyone has the complaint that I don't want this in my backyard.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I hear
when
that
the
continuously.
mission opened here in Scranton, I told you I broke the story about that on Channel 22. And one of the first things I did was talk to a representative coming in to try to open it. But then the second thing I did was to talk to neighbors. And of course, by and large, the neighborhood response was the typical one you'd expect. I think it's a great thing. We ought to have it, but not right here.
Right. Not my backyard.
Right. Yeah.
But here's where I would come back and say that going back, it could be any day. It could be you that could be homeless. It could be me that could be homeless. We need to stop that from happening, period, across the whole area. We hear a lot of clauses and a lot of statements that are out there. They talk about the heroin epidemic.
Yes, yeah.
They talk about the mental health epidemic. We have a homeless epidemic. And falling underneath that would be opioid epidemic and also mental health epidemic. We have an epidemic here. And we're here to help everyone. We're not here to say, okay, you know what, that's your misfortune. I'm better off. Let's not look that direction. It's okay. Don't want it in my backyard. Don't want to deal with it. I think we have an obligation as society to make sure that we look out for everybody and make sure that everyone has a chance.
Well, and anyone in need would, to some extent, tax our resources. Those who are not in need are still paying taxes for police service and for emergency services. So to that degree, there's almost a direct connection.
Right, and if for the taxpayer dollar, which pays for the human services that go out there, that pays for, like you said, the police protection, that pays for the ambulance crews that are going out to help them in the severe winter or the severe heat that's out there, the fire departments, whether they're trying to do the rescue or whatever it is. So there is a tax dollar burden on this. But Dave, let's take a dream, right? Let's say that this population that we have, we can give them something that we could give everyone, when that's hope. When you give someone hope, it's a powerful thing.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're homeless or not. You give them hope, it's powerful. But if we give this population hope, And we say, and I went to a meeting with a bunch of business owners, and the number one complaint that they said was, I don't have qualified manufacturer positions, people applying that are qualified for the positions that I'm running. And that's scary because the business owner needs to operate. They need to make sure. But wouldn't it be wonderful that we could give these individuals hope and train them and give them that skill and that technology to do that manufacturing job?
Especially for positions in the area that you know are needed or available.
And that's right. This meeting was all the manufacturers in Luzerne and Lackawanna.
Okay. So
this wasn't Philadelphia manufacturers. This wasn't Harrisburg. This wasn't out in Erie. This was right home here in Luzerne and Lackawanna. We train these individuals, and we now got them a job, right? We get them stable housing. We then get them paying for that stable housing on their own, and we get them having that job that gives them substantial amount to live on. That's an amazing thing. We just gave them hope where maybe 4 years ago, 3 years ago, they were living off the street, and now they're being, as I don't like to say this, but the productive members of society. You know, they're the ones that are out there that are giving back now, and they're now giving it back to the next person so that they have that opportunity. I think the biggest thing we need to do is give them hope. You know, we don't give hope. We like to take that away from people. This is the country of, dreams. This is the country of, you come here to make it better yourself. We all got to work as a community. And I think that's another piece I'd like to bring up too, is that community piece. We've lost today working as a community. I remember growing up when someone in my neighborhood had a problem, lost a job, maybe their spouse passed away and now they're a single home, bringing in a single income in, that the families of the area came together.
Yeah, neighborhood support.
Came together. I remember ringing the doorbell and there was a meal there, it wasn't the meal I like to eat, but you know what? It was food on my table.
Yeah.
And I remember the community came out to get involved. And we need to bring that back.
You knew your neighbor then.
You did.
And unfortunately today, I think a lot of people don't know their neighbors the way they used to. Don't know exactly the reason for that. Probably a complicated situation.
It's an interesting topic to actually try to figure out why that is.
Yeah.
But one of the things that Keystone Mission does, we talked about, it takes care of helping the homeless and all that, but we bring that community together for a good cause. Because there's something about helping another individual that becomes infectious.
Yeah.
And then you want to help and continue to help, and you see that good. And then, hey, Dave, you got, you're doing pretty good for yourself, and you start helping someone else out, and you start giving that hope to someone else. That hope feeds back to you. And then you start feeling that, and it resonates. Yeah. And then the whole community is bombarding this whole cause. And I'm not just saying homeless. We could do this to the opiate epidemic. We could do this to the mental health epidemic. We could do this across the nation if we did this all together. We came together. We worked together. We helped take care of this, all these epidemics that they want to label, right? We'd be a great place.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, and that's one of my big pushes is I really want the community to get involved. We're starting to build. That's one of the things I'm going to do as, coming onto this position is I want to build those bonds. I want to build the community network. I want to work together because guess what? You can build a house yourself. Hammering it, it takes what? It would take about a couple years to get it done, right? But if I had 150 people together working with me, I could get that house done in maybe about a month.
We've seen examples where I guess traditionally the Amish community that comes together and put up a barn in a day for a family. Well, getting back to the normal needs in the wintertime, that community help is usually, beyond financial donations, which we understand is a year-round need. In the wintertime, blankets and coats. There were those special beds that they made up that tended to, not get wrecked in the weather. Summertime, what kind of needs, are they the same? Do they vary?
They're the same. I would say you still got to protect yourself from the elements, so they're the same. But I would say a lot more now would involve the meals, getting something to eat. And that goes with the wintertime too, is you want to get that nourishment, And I'm not talking about the meals that are out there that, I call it the microwave meals, that you come out and you open them up. The meals that are substantial, that make her filling, that give them the nutrients and the nutrition that they need. And And we offer that at Keystone Mission on Saturdays and Sundays. We have a thing called Message and a Meal, both in Scranton and also in Wilkes-Barre, where the individual can come and the guests can come in there and enjoy a meal and enjoy the camaraderie and enjoy the community setting.
And it's a faith-based
That is correct.
organization, so that the message, as you say, of hope, is offered.
And that's why I brought the word hope up to you, because that's what we're giving individuals is hope, and it's a powerful thing. I had with me, I was reading over it, and I always do this, I always read those stories, you know, and I wish everybody had those stories that were better themselves. And I read one story, her name was Carol, and she came to the Keystone Mission lost. She had no direction where she needed to go. She just knew that she needed help. And the interview was going back and forth with Carol, and what came back from that was that Keystone Mission gave her that hope. And that hope drove her, and now to this day, she's not homeless. She has an apartment that she's paying for. She's got a job. She's working, you know, like all of us, 40. She's putting back into society. And the best part about this whole thing is she's giving back.
Yeah.
And that's powerful.
You also, and that example, you said earlier, you know, it's not just the men, it's the women, and I'm gathering families in some cases. We tend to think of it as men only, but it's not. And that creates a whole separate need for you.
So I don't want to scare you, but of that 500,000 across the nation,
Yeah.
about 20% of them are children.
Wow. Wow.
So we're losing a big piece of that, and the children. You know, we always talk about the children are our future, and if 20% of that population is the homeless population, that's scary. And it just goes on and on. You know, you talk about the women. Women's a huge chunk of that, and then they become vulnerable, right? Because now women are vulnerable out there, and they have to fight not only the elements, not only, you know, where am I going to eat the next day, or where am I going to eat the next hour, but they're also now facing that protection. You know, who's going to protect me? Because they're a vulnerable population. The other issue we have to look at too is ethnic. It goes all across all the ethnic backgrounds. We're not, you know, this is not just an African American issue. This is not just a Caucasian issue. This is not just an Asian issue. This is across the whole border. And that's why I say, I always point out that we need to give them hope, and that homelessness does not discriminate.
I know we've talked before about this, but it's certainly worth repeating. One of the segments of our society that has often become the victims of homelessness are the veterans. You know, we think of them back from Vietnam on forward. Now, it may be because they bring some baggage with them coming back, but that is a tough thing to deal with. And boy, with all the focus lately on USA, we tend to forget that these are some of the folks that are homeless.
So it's one of my passions is the veteran population. And that's probably because I'm biased in that I'm a veteran myself. I served in the United States Army, and I can see that happening to every veteran that gets out of the military like that. You say baggage, they're dealing with a lot of issues that are going on when they get out, whether it's the war, whether it's dealing with just the military life going to civilian life. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
And I agree. You know, it's an issue with the veteran population, and in the same breath we're chanting USA, and it almost says, like, where are we not? Are we looking out for these veteran population? Are we looking out for them? But yet they're still homeless. So again, I go back to my bottom line is if we instill hope into a veteran, right? And what I like is I can connect to the veterans. Being a veteran myself, I understand their language and how they work. But in another sense, and this is interesting, when I worked in Luzerne County, there was an individual that was happy being homeless.
Oh.
And this is a very minority. This is a small minority.
Sure.
But we have to recognize, but what I bring out by saying that is we need to recognize that every single individual that's living with homelessness has an issue. It's different. It's not cookie cutter. And we need to recognize what that issue is and we really need to fill those gaps.
You've got to tailor your services
Correct.
to those particular needs and abilities.
Correct.
Now, in order to do that, and I touched lightly on the fact that the financial plight is a year-round thing, but it's a serious year-round thing. Especially when we talked to your predecessor, Mr. Gleason, there were some hopes of getting a facility, a large facility together, where the homeless could be counseled, they could be trained in, as you said, there are area employers that are looking for particular skills, and perhaps housing as well. So I know that's a touchy subject, because just as it was when I broke the story about the Keystone mission coming, yeah, but not right here, you're going to face to some degree the same thing with a large facility. So unless you're willing to say, yeah, we want to put it at the Third and Elm or wherever, where does that stand?
Well, I can tell you that it's not off the table. It's 100% we're looking into that. But I will tell you this, if the people that are listening to this and yourself, if you look up Water Street Mission in Lancaster, they're doing it right.
Okay.
They know what they're doing. And they're talking about everything you just said and that John Gleason prior to me has talked about. That's what they're doing. They have a facility where people come in, and we instill that hope into them. We transform them into then becoming productive people that are willing, that have that self-worth, that have that hope. And again, the best part is those that go through the program and those that do everything, and they in Keystone Mission and also in Water Street Mission, that are going through all that, they give back. And that community bond starts becoming stronger and stronger and stronger.
That you talked about earlier.
And this can't be done by a Keystone Mission. I'll be honest with you. This will be done by Keystone Mission with the community.
So you've got to really organize various groups together and get the community together on
Correct.
this. In the meantime, to operate, the funds are needed. Yep. What about volunteers?
Volunteers are just like donations. We need both of them. Again, Keystone Mission has the framework. It's the volunteers with Keystone Mission staff to help out.
I always ask, though, when we suggest to the viewing public that there's a need for volunteers, I can envision a person out there saying, I'd like to volunteer, I'd like to help, but what can I do? Like, I don't have any specific training.
Volunteer doesn't have to be going out there serving food during, the message in the meal. Volunteer doesn't have to go out to help out with the distribution that we do with handing out over $1.2 million worth of food to those that are in need of food across the whole year. Volunteering doesn't have to be that you're going to come in and help in the building dealing with, either maintenance or dealing with helping out in whatever direction it is. Volunteer, we will find what your skills are and what your strengths are, and we will utilize that. Whether it's answering the phone, whether it's you just going out there and telling 5 other people about Keystone Mission. That's volunteering. I'm not looking for those that are going to say, hey, listen, I need 40 hours on top of the 40 hours you're already working. I just need you to say, hey, listen, this is what I want to volunteer. How can I? And we will find that hour if you want to give, that 30 minutes you want to give, or that 1 minute you want to give. Volunteering is volunteering, and I'll take it no matter how it is. And they're giving back. And that's the best part, and I love it, is that they're giving back to their community.
And I will remind everyone, as I did earlier, that in the case of Keystone Mission, it is an operation that entails both Wilkes-Barre and Scranton. So the volunteer need can be tailored. If you're in the Luzerne County area, be used there. If you're in Lackawanna County, then obviously the mission in this area can make use of your skills, or they'll help you find what skills that you may have that will apply to their needs. Financial donations, clothing donations, food donations, how do they get in touch with you to make that happen?
Rather than repeating addresses and phone numbers, I think the easiest way is there's 2 different ways that we could do it. They could go out to www.keystonemission.org. That's our website. It's all on there. Take a look at it. Donation financially is on there, along with also how to donate with clothing, food, and also volunteer work. The other way I say is everyone's using Facebook. We talked earlier about this.
Yeah.
Facebook is like the new fashion. My developments chairman always laughs at me. He thinks I can't deal with technology. I like the good old paper and pen. But in saying that, we also are on Facebook at Keystone Mission. Please like us and please follow us because we're putting a lot of information out there. Like we actually have coming up a 5K. On July 27th, we're going to be doing a 5K, which is going to be more of a recognition of making an awareness of the homelessness that's out there. At the same time, also saying, hey, listen, come on out here for a good cause. So
That's in Scranton?
that's going to be on Scranton on Olive Street is actually where we're going to start on the Heritage Trail. And it'll be 5K, which is 3-point-something miles. And we're asking people to come out, join us. If you go on our Facebook page, there's a link on there for the 5K. And also on our website, there's a link also for the 5K.
Great way to get the community involved since those runs and I hope walks as well.
Yes, that's for me.
I understand totally. Well, Justin, I thank you so much for coming on. We will definitely schedule you to come back as winter approaches and those specific needs maybe, they get more specific at that time.
Yeah.
But thank you for the work you're doing with the Keystone Mission, and let's hope that we have some great news in terms of expanding services for those that are in need.
I'm hoping to come back with some good news.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm David DeCosmo for ECTV Live. Until we see you again next week, here's hoping all your news is good.